afternoon. Here to discuss the plight of misrepresentation pertaining to the Louisiana estate and me being acting as a theoretical based on tons of evidence. It could be easily manufactured tangible because we know how valid everything is today, with the crazy incompetence of the media just allowing anything with a flashbulb the rights of a Nike god. So, what's going on is how we are utilized, in my theoretical estimation, on certain levels, and then we're reverent beauticians on top of that, being used as slaves as far as trying to cure some ills and even though they're creating bigger problems by destroying the source of our power, theoretically, of course. It all goes back to like The Sting. You remember the movie with Robert Redford and Paul Newman? The Big Mick was conning Henry Gandor and all this sort of stuff. Well, what's been going on, it's basically Fast Eddie Felson sort of mentality was conning us, in my estimation. We're being conned, a sting setup. And what we provide is this keymaker mentality. We're like I said, that character in the Matrix. We can make keys to just about anything because we have high genetic rank power. Or we can tunnel into bank vaults. We can drill into jewel vaults. We can produce a ton of fake credit cards that can buy just about anything because of the nature of the source of power being, in my theoretical estimation, a combination of things. Turo Synagogue, the connectivity with Mikveh Synagogue, the Beavis Marks Synagogue in London, and then St. Louis Cathedral, St. Louis King of France, King Cakes, KC Royals, the bread factory, interstate bread factory, if you would, holy radioactive communion to create some big human growth hormone clones. What's going on is it's really funny cooking the books. It's really fishy as far as the suspect math and chemistry, in my estimation, based upon some best ball averages, but rather than median. There's no median going on. They're playing the high ball every time when they factor in the accounting, and therefore they're overinflating the value. Then they're using healthcare and producing tons of cash in order to validate the overinflated math because they all wear helmets. Everybody's an Iron Man stormtrooper with magic helmets and body armor shield because of symbiotic correlation representational facades, theoretically, cults, in order to outmaneuver, outrank those that are being the powers derived from, that are being reverent and pious because the source of the energy and assets are from a holy institution. But that doesn't matter. So, it's the Merrill Lynching, if you would. So, we're the cons here. We got horrifically mismanaged with a ton of evidence. They were just playing dumb. Doping big dopes, just playing dumb. Hey, look at these fools here. Everybody's watching. Nobody does anything. No good Samaritans in the bunch. They just let you run astray. Tasmanian devil, if you would. The tornado, ransom holds. Now they got the new core in St. James Parish right there at the Sunshine Bridge across from Ascension Parish, where we discussed that Ascension loophole into Ace Hardware and Oakbrook Lions Club and Mackie D's. And so, we were conned. And therefore, it would be like taking some high-value assets, theoretically, because we have the propensity to create tangible manufactured proof. Real easy. Like synchronicity. Synchronicity is validity in a lot of circles. In a world built on very thin paper credibility. And therefore, we have tons of this raw mariners, if you would, astronomy generated because of gravitational fields. It's a gravitational galaxy field, variations of them. They produce spiraling patterns And that's what, in my metaphorical context, it is. It's a gravitational field. And we just happen to be the center of gravity because probably Mississippi River, Touro Synagogue, St. Louis Cathedral, and throw in a bunch of power plants, and you got, it can be manipulated any number of ways. So we are used to, we were mismanaged as far as we were brainwashed. If we have a value of $1 billion raw material. That's not saying we have $1 billion in the bank. We have the potential to put together $1 billion estate, but we were taught like normal old everyday. We were brainwashed as far as that's the overboard amnesia coma of in order to be utilized as leverage. And it also goes back, in my estimation, to the healthcare. It's gambler, drug addict healthcare. I mean, they made some really poor judgment, in my estimation, from going back to probably the 60s, 70s, 80s, probably even before that. I don't know. I'd like to know. Hopefully, I don't know. I'm sure there's a way to, but everybody seems to hide the truth from the principles because they're trying to keep us in the dark because we provide light to everybody else. Keep us completely dark. We're the black hole. But instead, there was a white hole, I think is what it called. It actually expels energy or something. I can't remember the astronomical physical terminology. Yeah, we are providing a lot of this free energy and validity. And so we were conned. And we were the chumps, the kidnapster. And it's all about done. Well, it was just like I said, they threw me out into a landmine field, with not really knowing anything. And I always pay, and not just me, everybody with the True Blood chumps pay a ton because we have deep pockets. Therefore, anything, anybody in the mob can get away with anything, because they don't really count. They can't really pay that much, so why make an example? Why? That's the thing about the mob. The mob makes examples of those with really deep pockets so they can pick them. That's what the mob's all about, picking pockets, any way means necessary. And then they use the loot. First thing they do when they get some ill-gotten gains is figure a way to cosmetically enhance them. So they even hired me as the beautician. I didn't get paid. My pimps gets paid, but I beautify those that pick my pockets for the most part. And like I said, it's a raw material key maker, as you would, or validator. My thumbprint or my blood print or my genetic code, something called genetic transfer agents, the GTA, Grand Theft Auto, GTA, Golden Ticket Awards, Arlington, Texas. There's all these symbiotic correlations of the grid, the magic grid, the force, if you would. But the force has been manipulated as far as what's providing energy for free. Those True Blood chumps provide a good amount, in my estimation. Well, they're funneling things. It's digging deep, global assets, and they don't really care. All they care about is their own. Whereas we are the bankers. It is our assets, in my estimation, under our control because I happen to be a capital principal. And therefore, I am showing a vested stake because I want to save credibility as far as banking and credibility because otherwise, it's good business on my part, to be honest with you. After getting screwed, I mean, it's really bad mismanagement, to be quite honest with you. They have really gone off the deep end. I mean, we're talking like 50 trillion in domestic debt. I mean, when you add in all the future, I mean, over the next 20 years, especially when you start looking into unfunded Medicare, Social Security pensions, you add in student debt, which are overvalued at that. I mean, like I said the other day in the thing, 60 of the top 120 colleges in the world are in the United States. We use 25% of the world's energy, but 60 of 120 of the top universities are in the U.S. That's half right there, and that's a ton of universal energy as far as to be able to compensation for that rank, whereas the basis of it is not necessarily there. It goes back to really crooked math, in my estimation. So we're there mismanaged and held in place in the zoo, as you would, the invisible force field zoo, because, and that's what it is. It's a force field. That's the whatever methodology you would see. But it's all about identity crisis. So our mismanagement, amnesia, coma, brainwashing creates an identity crisis where we act like we're brainwashed to act. Kind of like Patty Hearst with the Symbionese Liberation Army, what they did with her. And you can, that's going to be, Stockholm Syndrome is a definite, because we basically got people that have, in order to facilitate, keep their position, have had to turn against, it's really bad. But the problem is, the law is crooked, to be quite honest with you. The law is not doing it. They're playing dumb. They are playing really dumb as far as, because they've let the system get overextended, so now they have to play dumb. That's healthcare, because they allowed this party to go on for so long and did nothing, because they wanted, it was all about proving who was the Playboy champions of the world, wrestling or something, I don't know, stupidity to keep the party going, because they were going to teach lessons on the global bank, on the deep pocket expense, in my estimation. So that's, like I said, paid a ton. Literally, we pay a ton for minutia. And I mean, literally could have been next to nothing. I mean, literally months worth of community service, which I'm paid with like 20 years and $50 trillion here. And the global economy is hinging. That's basically what's going on, because the Wild Goose Chase Marathon is a free loot party. That's what it is. It's a free loot party. And they had to protect themselves by indoctrinating, brainwashing factions of the True Blood to do their dirty work. That's the Louis Marx Toys Rock'em Sock'em Robots. So they could stretch Armstrong the truth, that latex math that stretches and stretches and stretches, and it does break, though. I mean, it's like, that's why Louis Armstrong Airport's there, because planes aren't Stretch Armstrong. You got to have some stability or they'll fall apart midair. Part of the problem. So it's hacked genetics is what's going on. So they have hacked our genetics to see wrong. What is going on is what our bodies have been hijacked and hacked to where they have reprogrammed our senses. That's what's happened to me. It would be like taking a massive supercomputer and then hacking it to think like a little bitty PC. And therefore our pimps are selling off all of the space that we don't use, because we only use a little bit of our potential. So therefore, that's a lot for the pimps to sell, and we don't get anything except nothing, really. I mean, honestly, we get nothing. That's out of the deal. You'll get nothing and like it in the Caddyshack. That sort of mentality, because it's really horrific when you look at it theoretically, of course. So, hack genetics make us see wrong, make us hear wrong, taste wrong, smell wrong, and then you factor in the amplification of this misnomer. Therefore, we were surrounded by the wrong people. We were told the wrong things. The logic we were seeing was wrong. And this had to go on before the internet. So this is going on way back when. This goes back to the parents' generation, who were terribly, terribly brainwashed. That's those crazy hippies. Literally, the hippie world right now we're living in. Free love with your $20 trillion deficit. That's free love, all right. On whose bank account? That's where the problem is. The Woodstock, 69 and I think 88 or 90 something. I don't remember. And we're still paying for that. That's on our tab, by the way. That's our bank accounts that we're paying for. And we didn't even get to go to the party. We were locked out of security welcome mats. In case anything went wrong, they keep guns to our heads for the most part. Anything goes wrong, we'll kill some hostages. Now that's strong arming. That's smart business right there. Of course. So, what's going on? I mean, there's a lot of angles of exploitation. And it's all hidden under the purple haze of the pollution cloud of chemistry. The chemistry industry is not bad in the aspect of the products they produce. The problem is the representational nature affixed to those products. So you take a barrel of oil, or and you produce a bunch of different products with that. Therefore, then those products are assigned values. What's going on? The bad part is, and that's where they tie in the True Blood chumps. The True Blood chumps are thrown into the mix. That adds a ton of validity to it. So it's like taking a plastic chair and selling it as a, way overvalued. That's not a plastic chair. That's a wooden throne or something like that. That's a Tiffany lamp. That's not, a Walmart light bulb or something like that. So what they've done, because of the attachments added to the product, it's not the oil companies, it's not the energy companies, it's what's going on is it's the manipulation by certain factions, that's where it gets into, that's what Baton Rouge is so good at, is they manipulate the products produced, and they cook the books with the chemistry and the alchemy by the Scrooged effects, where they take it and they just exploit it to the nth degree in order to get their money's worth out of it, while we are providing the extra juice. It's like juicing. I mean, literally, it's like steroids. I mean, when it really is, it's steroids of product. There's a lot of steroid. You can call it Neutropin is a HGH, human growth hormone, by Roche, which I think I tie into, to be honest with you. They're validating it. It really is. It's genetic modified. There's all sorts of manipulations of the product. We happen to add the juice. We're the juicers. We're the juice heads that get squeezed. The True Blood chumps that increase. Like I said, when you take a median, you got a billion and you got a bunch of thousands, and you average them all together, then you make those thousands, 100,000, you bury the billion to protect the 100,000s that you created, but the inherent value has to be done somehow. And the problem is that where does the source of that billion comes from? Global assets, which are being decimated in order to protect the value of the enhancement. That's not necessarily good for business long term. That's why you've got such a mutation of traditional capital principles. That's where I'm trying to stay fixed. I'm following traditional capital principles in order to save a little bit of banking fees globally, even though I'm not allowed to use my global assets because other people, we have assets globally that are being utilized by our pimps selling them to other people in any number of ways possible. So we are weak and vulnerable. That's where you get into the myth busters and desecrators. With me, I was very weak and vulnerable and didn't really know what was going on. I was just trying to blend in I was dog paddling through life and in open seas, being eaten by sharks, surrounded by party barges that wouldn't let me on. And so I'm being eaten by sharks, dog paddling through life, surrounded by party barges, and not allowed to get out of the water because it was entertainment or something. I don't know. That's the crooked cop mentality, because they were letting the sharks do the dirty work, and it was getting. If I died, they would bring me up just so that's with a life support coma, that I'm just barely alive and handicapped, weak to be contained. And they try to bullshit it as any means, electron strippers or nuclear power plant, River Bend, or it's a sham. Literally a horrific misinterpretation. So the purple haze goes into that, blinds the reality of it. And Baton Rouge committed suicide numerous times. There, Baton Rouge is Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin and Kurt Cobain. They decided they wanted to gamble. They wanted to be daredevils and gamble rather than building an empire. And we have to pay as hostages. Now they're trying to get out of it with Blue Cross Blue Shield and health that we provide power to help those that screwed us get well. That's the whole other misnomer. We should not have family working for the state. We should not. We should be independent of the system, but we are forced by our pimp handlers in order to validate and provide free energy to all these schemes because we are not smart enough to figure out a way to escape, or we are brainwashed or scared to where we can't really do anything about it. And I am literally have been boycotted by the media for 7 years and been blacklisted by anyway. I've tried to make enough money to hire competent lawyers and protect myself, but I'm not allowed because I'm blacklisted. It's a bribe. When I am exposed, it is a bribe because certain mercenary functions or know how to utilize me, factions, as energy. They've learned ways to manipulate me, plugging me into their schemes that power and validate their schemes, their networks and schemes and different jobs or different things I'm forced within to add validity and power to these schemes. And it's like I said, you throw a big high value asset into this small ball mentality and it juices them all. You know, it's a heavy duty juice like the U.S. Postal and Lance Armstrong. Literally, that's what it is. Heavy duty juicing for the system itself on many different levels. But those in the animal or in the cops don't necessarily, or the law, those with money, the vested interest, are having a good time. You know, they're competitive eating. They don't really care because they don't have anything. They don't have to pay. This is all on us or me for the most part. So it goes back to, like I said, the duality. Yet we are forced to be reverent beauticians to locals and at the global expense. So there's the state we live within is acting in the interest of the state, even though it is a global bank that is being accessed. The politicians, the mayors, the local governors even, are playing the party game. Most states don't have an international bank of assets going through. So therefore, the political party game would ostracize the state so that politicians are forced. But then the mob, which is heavily funded by energy and other factions from New York, Georgia, Texas, and California, and Chicago, are paying them to keep us occupied because, see, we have an inherent birthright. Therefore, we could put together, if it ever got to trial, there would truly, you put together all this synchronicity, astronomy, there would be, in the thin nature of credibility in this world, we would have a very strong case. If you put all the thousands of pages of evidence I've dug up. So it behooves them to keep us occupied in the zoo as captivity. So Louisiana has been inundated from all sides. They're not playing the global game at all. They play the local game. The politicians are playing the political machine game. And they're being coaxed along, forced to play as the politicians, while other people who don't have a vested interest are utilizing our influence. They're going in the back door and looting the bank vault and giving it to their buddies. So the politicians don't really have a vested stake in the global asset bank. So therefore, that's why they don't necessarily have the best interest of the bank at hand. And the problem is, it's really like Mardi Gras that never ends and the world pays because it is just printing tons of plastic bead cash. At whose expense? The global economy, which has been run off a cliff because of the party system mentality, has shackled and handicapped the bank. It would be like going in and taking over bank officers. That's what we would be considered, capital principal bank officers. We were hijacked and crashed, and we are held for ransom by, that's the East Lansing Beaumont Tower there for Nucor. So we are held for ransom, yet it is very smartly done, because we are brainwashed to live within our little circle, our caged bars, even though we are very valuable. And they are desperate to keep us in the little Truman Show dome because there are all sorts of threats from all different sorts of things because they bet so heavily on slavery. They bet on slavery because they think they're going to cure, any of their ill. They think they're going to cure any of the, they're initiating the certain factors into the club. They're at our expense, but it's really, they're getting paid on one end and we're providing health care on the other. Who pays? Latin America and Europe, for the most part, are getting screwed really bad because of mismanagement and excess of assets. Because they're producing a bunch of overvalued forgery clones that are way overvalued. Then using the source, the victims to provide health care to protect those that are of ill-gotten gains. And therefore, it creates a cataclysmic effect, which is seen through the media and economic policy and particular prevalence. So, what is the answer? Not rightly sure, other than espousing. Well, they're trying to, erase history is what they're doing. I mean, they think they can, they really think they can erase history. I mean, and not necessarily following any sort of parameters of logic, because all they had to do was build an empire. I guarantee you it goes back to they got scared. And they wanted to keep the money in New York. They didn't want competition. The competitors hate competition. So they buried Louisiana. Texas, who cares? They can't go anywhere, even though now you've got a bunch of these big Texas oil companies that are jumping ship to the Caymans, or jumping ship to Switzerland, they're jumping ship to Dubai, to prove that they have options, because we had a lot of options in Louisiana Bank, and we were building a bridge through Mississippi as a money exchange. But instead, they wanted the purple haze. They wanted their daredevil. They went crazy. They lost their shit, man. For the most part, couldn't handle their drugs and alcohol, and their It's not like it's a real safe environment. And if you look around, because the predator law around is, it's so they really shouldn't have done this. It was really horrifically piss poor judgment, in my estimation. So, what's going on now is you've got others that, for the most part, Louisiana was kept real small and under control because we had options. And we are that secret weapon, that deep, deep pockets into Latin America and now they're trying to validate it. So now they're trying to sell it and spin it, and by giving out, basically they will bribe anyone. They will give their pets Cartier and Tiffany jewels. They'll give their pets gold teeth with diamonds in them, but they will lock their bankers out to be murdered by their pets to make their pets more credible, because they don't want to pay a cent. They'll pay a bunch of nobodies a ton. They don't care. Here, you can have all the cash in the world, but if you got options, you got to be a slave, because we're going to steal your wallet and we'd rather produce a bunch of counterfeit forged credit cards and keep you as a slave hostage in the zoo, therefore to protect it, rather than, because they didn't want to expand. Louisiana could very easily be one of the biggest global empires in the world, especially if they would have built bridges to Texas, to Atlanta, to St. Louis, and then to South America. But that's a threat. They don't care. California, big as can be, hey, who cares? New York, I saw Louisiana as a threat in my estimation, because of, I don't know why. I mean, they just wanted to bury Louisiana for some odd reason, and we pay as slaves. We play as zoo slaves. Because they decided to gamble on burying us, I guess because they wanted to be the master. It wouldn't surprise me. They are crazy. Obviously they are just absolutely insane for gambling this much. And how do they hedge their bets? Print tons of cash and buy everything. Just give the money away. It's really like a Goodfellow Lufthansa heist, but a lot bigger. There's all sorts of cons going on. Oceans 11, 12, 13. And you can hide it there's a number of ways to hide it in any sort of, but that's why we are kept as the true blood chumps, weak and vulnerable, in order to desecrate, because they are trying to invalidate us to protect and make those that have utilized our influence look stronger. That's what the name of the game is. We're weak and vulnerable, and therefore we are distributing power for free because our pimps are getting paid. You know, it's reverence, yeah, beautician reverence. The house, it's been taken over, hijacked, and they're giving out free VIP house accounts to the penthouse. You know, and keys to the Aston Martins and keys to the Ferraris that nobody we pay for because you gotta. It's more than just cash. You know, you gotta in order to control a global asset worth that much money, it takes a lot more than cash. And in order to validate the tons of cash, they print more cash. It's really crooked. And then they try to destroy the entire global economic system principles in order to change, in order to validate the tons of cash they produce rather than paying their bill. It really is. They just keep spinning and spinning and spinning yarn. And they don't necessarily, it's designer drugs, that sort of mentality. It's really suspect at best, in my estimation. So, what to do about it? In my estimation, not rightly sure, I would say, man, well, I could, like I said, I would like to hire some counsel to give me some factual basis. But I'm not allowed to. That's why, because I am stuck here as a hostage. And for most particular ironies,